last decade, data shows that fatal crashes in our community have cost more than $4 billion and has impacted hundreds of families.
It also shows those deaths have a disproportionate impact on certain communities. Tonight, 6 News' Marlo Lundak is on your side with the reason why and what's being done to fix it.
Data gathered in the last 10 years shows that about 300 people have died in crashes on Omaha roads. That data also shows that some community members are disproportionately impacted.
There is a significant racial disparities in our transportation system. It's not just Omaha, it's a national issue.
Jeff Subject is with Vision Zero, the initiative that seeks to reduce yearly traffic deaths in Omaha down to zero. The data collected by the group is eye-opening.
If you're a black road user, you're almost 2 times more likely to die in a traffic crash than if you were a white road user.
Black and African American community members make up about 12% of Omaha's population, but they account for about 22% of fatal crashes in the metro, whether they're biking, driving, or walking. And when it comes to Native Americans, they make up just 1% of the city's population, but 3% of fatal crashes. That means they're 3 times more likely to die in a fatal crash in Omaha than a white person is.
I'm stunned because I had no idea.
Dr. Donna Polk runs the Nebraska Urban Indian Health Coalition. She says this is a public health issue and it needs to be addressed in her community.
Hearing this is startling, and immediately I begin to think, what can I do?
Subject tells us the reason why Black and Native communities see higher fatal crash rates is actually not that shocking. It's all connected to redlining.
The root issue to all of this is just kind of where investments have historically been made.
He says roadways and infrastructure in minority communities, mostly North and South Omaha, don't meet all the same safety standards as other parts of the city. And those community members are more exposed to potential road dangers.
And oftentimes those parts of town are lower income. Those individuals often aren't able to purchase a car, own a car, and they're more reliant on our sidewalks and our street infrastructure to be able to walk or bike. Vision Zero's action plan seeks to change these trends. That happens through improving road infrastructure in those communities. Just more intention to how our intersections are designed, looking for opportunities to reduce roadway width, provide more mid-block crossing opportunities. And as those changes happen, Dr. Polk says she hopes everyone has a voice.
So I think with gentrification playing such a great part of the redesign of our city, I think it's vital that you have people representing these various communities at the table when these plans are being developed.
On your side in Omaha, Marlo Lundak, 6 News.
Vision Zero has been working on its action plan for several years now. It will be presented to Omaha City Council in the coming weeks.